So turn, just for everyone in the room, turn, in simplest terms, we swap out single-use products for reusables. So that's been our ethos, and that's been our mission for over 12 years now. The business was set up in Australia and New Zealand, and we've spread our reach into the US over the last 3 years. So we cover Australia, New Zealand, widely across the whole of the US, and we'll be moving more into Europe next year. Just a quick background on reusables. You're all probably very familiar with the space. There's a huge amount of momentum, particularly in Europe. It's coming from top-down pressure from governments and legislation, which has been really enforcing reuse. So removing single-use products, whether it be cups, bowls, utensils, and so on, for reusables. The areas in red, you can see on the map, particularly in Europe. So we're seeing like Belgium, some parts of Scandinavia, France, Germany, UK. There's a lot of legislation being put in place, which is fantastic. We even saw it during the Paris Olympics. So wide-scale events are starting to switch from single-use to reusables. The good news is in the US, there is some legislation taking place at the moment. We're working with a few cities like San Francisco, for example, and other municipalities across the US. It looks like next year there'll be quite a bit of that taking place. So a lot of the clients we work with are forward thinking in terms of wanting to minimize their impact, but also they're coming to us because they know legislation's coming down the pipeline. I guess a sense, if we zoom out a little bit, of the actual market itself. So reuse sits in the sort of packaging, the global sort of packaging market, and it's growing very quickly. So it's already $100 billion market globally. But the good news is that it's rapidly growing, doubling over the next sort of five, 6 years. This is, there's an ongoing sort of demand from top down, obviously, government legislation, but bottom up is where we see most momentum. Everyone on the call is very familiar with what kind of crisis we're under in terms of, planetary issues with plastic through to carbon. And the consumers are starting to kind of rise up around it. So huge demand for businesses, cities, to swap out single-use products. Reuse, it has a huge potential impact. I think there are sort of two ways to really solve this plastic issue. One is through new materials, and the second is through reusing products. There's a lot of great innovation happening in the new materials space, but it is very costly still, and it's not. Most of the materials are not quite applicable for scale at the moment. So reuse, we feel, has the best potential impact in the short to medium term. Ellen MacArthur Foundation and many others have done extensive reports on what is the actual potential impact. These numbers are pretty staggering. So 45 to 70% less water and material use if you switch to reuse, and between 39 to 69% greenhouse gas emissions reductions. So big chunky numbers. And that's really why we've kind of honed in on this space. So Turn is really actually, we feel ourselves as a platform designed to implement reuse at scale. So we actually talk about ourselves as a tech company. We've created this sort of tech platform that incentivizes people to return products. So we have a whole suite of products from smart packaging. So we have cups, bowls, plates, utensils. We're also doing water bottles as well. We have return bins that are set up across different partners as well, where we're able to track returns. We have a global washing network as well. So that is set up across the US, Australia, New Zealand at the moment, and many other places. And then importantly, we have a management platform as well, which helps all partners understand the actual impact from a carbon emissions perspective through to plastic waste mitigation. And then the central piece of what we do is this rewards platform. So the core thesis at Turn is that in order to drive return rates, you need to incentivize people. And that way you bring people in to take action who might not necessarily care about the planet, but they will care about rewards. So this is the full spectrum. So we're a real end-to-end solution, right from designing and producing the packaging through to the rewards platform. Our washing network is pretty comprehensive. So we have our owned and operated washing network, and then we have partner washing hubs set up as well. This is with an airport washing provider, who pretty much have a washing facility in most major cities across the world. So all the T's you can see there. The owned and operated ones we have are in Australia and New Zealand. We've got a huge one in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. And then we've got smaller hubs. So the one in Orlando, we've got Texas covered, we've got California. And then next year we'll be moving up into the northeast of the US. So Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, where there's a lot of opportunities as well. And then, the people we work with. So we're lucky enough to work with some fantastic global brands. I'd say our sweet spot is in these closed loop environments. So where an individual will go into a space, they'll buy a drink, they'll drink it, and then they'll deposit it in that space. So think of those as venues, for music events or sporting events, stadiums, festivals, airlines and airports are fantastic as well. Disney parks are great. So those closed loop environments are where reuse is best adopted. We are experimenting beyond that into these open environments. So we've done we did a 6-month pilot with Starbucks in an open environment, which is more of a challenge to try and get those products back. And we'll be doing more of that actually with Chick-fil-A next year as well. Those are just a smattering of some of the partners that we work with. In terms of the actual system that we operate, so we have a really full customized experience that we have for different clients. We either lease or we can produce custom products for partners. So this is just illustrating what it might look like for Coca-Cola, who we've worked with. So we have the reusable cups or products. We have smart bins, the rewards platform, and custom communications as well. If I zoom in a little bit, so we've got these patented cups. So we spent quite a lot of time actually trying to figure out what are the best types of cups that are resilient, that can be washed numerous times. So ours can be washed over 120 times. The more they get used, the better the impact is. That are sturdy and light at the same time. And so we work with a design firm, the Jakobs Ingels Group in Denmark, to do this. So they're our own patented cup. They're fully stackable, so every single shape and size can fit into one another. And we have a huge spectrum of them. So everything from a 3-ounce shot to a 32-ounce. The sweet spot being probably the 12 to 16 ounces tends to be the most used of those products. We use polypropylene. I've alluded to it earlier, but that is a much lower impact when you're creating that product compared to any other material, and it's got great health and safety standards. It's really resilient to high temperatures for washing as well. So those are our cups. As I said, we either lease our own cups or we can customize cups, which quite a lot of long-term partners like to do as well. Oops. Trying to click out. Here we go. We also have those are our cold cups. We do have hot cups as well. So we've got a range of different sizes for our coffee cups. So these are 16 ounce, 12 ounce, 9 ounce. So those are really fantastic for different events. To be honest, we tend to utilize these a lot at stadiums as well. For example, where there's a dual need for different types of cups. We do have reusable bowls of different shapes and sizes. So these are really sturdy. We're actually using these with Disney in Atlanta. We're doing a project with Disney in Atlanta where there's a more kind of, there's a craft services requirement as well. We have cutlery as well, reusable cutlery. So these, again, same sort of process. These get sent out and utilized on a regular basis. And quite interestingly, we've just started piloting and testing water bottles. So we saw a huge opportunity really around water bottles. Most I think there's a lot of partners that we've worked with who went down the route of aluminium um, water bottles, but then they started to realize actually what the impact was, and that they aren't reusable, and they get very much dented, and the impact is significantly higher. So we've gone down the same route. We use a polypropylene and Triton bottle for this. And probably the most interesting piece is that we've partnered with a company called Blue Water, and they have a very innovative water filtration system that we leverage. So we set this up within our washing facilities, where they have it's called superior osmosis. So it's a kind of reverse osmosis technology. But it's a lot more comprehensive than traditional RO solutions. So it's got 78% wastewater recovery versus the normal 30%. And you can actually customize the water depending on the different minerals that you'd like as well, using Swedish minerals. So we've got this in motion with a few partners. They work with Apple, Airbnb, and Coachella Festival, Stanford University, and so on. But we've set up this system, so we're actually able to utilize the reusable water bottles. We're able to fill them up within our wash hubs, and then put them out into market. Then we'll recover them, wash them, and then fill them up again. So it's quite an innovative solution, much lower impact than anything else out there in the market. And again, we're using this with Disney as well at the moment in Atlanta, which has been going really well. So those are some of the products. We also have our bins. So we've got a range of different bins, different shapes and sizes. We actually have a kind of smart bin technology that we've been utilizing for some different clients, where we're able to track individual bottles or cups or bowls when people scan them. So, Maddie might go to an event, and you might be able to scan your cup, deposit it, and we know that you've deposited that cup. That links to the rewards platform and is able to incentivize you and reward you throughout that process. And over time, we can track how many cups an individual has dropped off, or how many people at the whole festival or event have deposited. And then that leads us to understanding what is the shared or collective impact of everyone from a carbon or plastic waste mitigation point of view. So really interesting. So we have sort of smart bins through to just more standard bins as well that we put out into market. I mentioned our rewards platform. So you can actually scan this QR code on your screen, and that should take you through to an example that we've done. But the way this works is it's not an app; it's just a simple API. So you can scan a QR code like the one on the screen, and that might be on your cup, it might be on the bin, or it might be on a poster around the event, and that will register you onto the rewards platform. When you deposit a cup, you'll be entered to win. And we can do really customized, tailored rewards for loads of different people. So, for example, we did Taylor Swift shows last year and Coldplay shows, and people could win signed merchandise, signed posters, through to VIP upgrades as well. And that really motivates people to get involved in it. Again, I think the main thing around this is we want to engage everyone. We don't want to just engage the converted few who are always going to be likely to do this. The rewards platform incentivizes people who don't care about the environment, but do care about winning VIP upgrades. And that pulls together a huge amount of people. So when we've implemented this, we get over 90% return rates in our program. So we've consistently got that over the last few years, over 90%. And that makes reuse, work extremely well when we're at that level. I just want to, zoom in on rewards. So I mentioned we get 90% return rates when we're doing incentives. We've done a lot of research, and there's a lot of peer-reviewed studies beyond this as well, outside of us, that show if you incentivize people to return or to recycle, you'll see a lift of over 10% compared to when you're not rewarding people. So in Europe, there are a lot of deposit schemes that are set up. And so the way those work is that people will pay $1 or a euro or a pound for a product, and then they'll get it back when they return. We've heard numerous times from Pepsi and AB InBev and Starbucks and so on that they don't like that process because the customers have to pay more. And then in order to get their money back, they have to queue up again, and that lengthens the lines at the drinks bars, and that means they actually have less sales during those events. So deposit schemes are very prolific in Europe, but there's definitely some catches to it: lower return rates and more disgruntled fans and brands. Or you could just do no program, and that's I guess the best reference there is our traditional recycling system, is just hoping people out of goodwill will return, and we kind of know the results of that, which sadly are not that impressive. So that's really our core thesis. So incentivizing people to return, that drives up return rates considerably. And then washing, drying, sanitizing. So we've spent a lot of time, we've been up and running for over 12 years. A lot of our focus has been on how to optimize the washing process. Reuse products are slightly different than traditional products. They need to be washed. They need to go through a much more rigorous process for spot checks, and drying is a really key piece of this as well. So we've customized our own IP around drying, and we implement those in all our facilities. So at the moment we're in Texas, Georgia, California, and Florida, and next year expanding more to New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Seattle, and potentially Kansas as well as Europe. Going to run you through some very quick case studies just so you get a sense of some of the projects that we're doing and the scale we're doing, really. So Live Nation is an investor and a partner of ours. So we've been working with them. They're the largest events music entertainment business in the world. So they run all festivals like Lollapalooza and Austin City Limits, which is coming up in a few weeks, through to Bonnaroo and so on. They also have all these venues dotted around, across Florida, across the whole of the US. And so we've been working with them for the last few years on switching from single use to reusable, and the results have been fantastic. So again, we're getting over 90% return rates across 36 music festivals. We're using, they're using over 2.5 million single-use cups, which we've helped divert from landfill, which has had a 41.5 million tons of CO2 impact, which is pretty considerable. And then the last piece within this is that we, through our rewards platform, we're actually seeing huge engagement on there. So Austin City Limits last year, we had 150,000 people go onto that platform and engage with it. That shows that people are kind of really enthused and motivated towards reuse, basically. So Live Nation's a great example. Starbucks is another one. I mentioned this earlier. We did a 12 store test with them, and this was in Northern California. This is an open environment, so people would go into the store, buy a product, and not necessarily deposit it there. But what we found is that people would come back with their week's supply of cups and then drop it off on a Friday or Monday or whatever it might be, in order to try and get rewards. Some of the key numbers here: we had 94% of people redeemed their incentives on the Turn Rewards platform, which showed that those triggers were really impactful, and over 160,000 cups were returned and washed during the pilot as well. So we're talking to them about a wider scale up, moving to around 50 stores is the next phase of this. And then on a more granular basis, so there's a couple of concerts at Coldplay we've partnered with. They've got a really strong commitment around the environment. So tons of initiatives they're doing, which is really impressive. And reuse is one of those. So we partnered with them, and across some of their events, we had 132,000 people across I think 2 or 3 events that they did, and we did really unique partnership here where they actually don't really sign any merch or any kind of collateral, and they signed a whole bunch of posters and merch for us for rewards, and that drove those return rates really high. And so we got everyone, obviously there's 100% engagement rate on those. And then likewise with Taylor Swift shows as well, we partnered with that tour. Huge impact, like 420,000 people. We did 4 back-to-back shows in LA, and again, really high return rates across the board during those events. And then we've been doing some stuff with Delta as well. With Air New Zealand is another airline we're working with. Delta's another one. They're really keen to try and phase out single-use plastic across their flights, and we're sort of working strategically with them to do that. And we've been doing international flights as well, mainly actually driven by legislation. So, in Europe, they're trying to phase everything out, and so their flights from the US to France are routes that we're really focused on. So yeah, lots of interesting projects in the works, and obviously I mentioned Disney is a really exciting partnership. We're working with them in the parks at the moment. I guess we're still in probably we're just starting month 2 of that project at the moment. But the good news is we're at 92% return rate already in the first month, and that normally goes up from there. So it's been a really, really fantastic partnership so far. But yeah, that's a quick background on Turn and some of the work we're doing and some of our products. But yeah, obviously really excited to hear any questions you might have, and also just see what partnership opportunities there might be in the greater kind of Florida and Miami regions as well. So thank you. Thanks for listening in.